What's new in Revit 2025? Before we begin, I'd like to talk about what we've missed since last year. So included in 2024.1 and point 2 and the July and November updates of last year, we'll talk about those new features briefly before we jump into what's new in 2025. So in 2024, I think it was one of the coolest versions in a while. They improved the dark theme, adding all kinds of improved icons and making it easier to use a completely dark theme with a dark working background, as well as all of the other ribbons and tools and icons were all updated. In point 2, we added some zooming features in the project navigator and improvements to Topo solids, things like simplifying points during creation. There were updates to twin motion in point 2, performances, performance enhancements when placing room in areas. That's usually where most of the Revit processing gets lost, if there's room and area warnings or things related to those calculations, and even more so if you turn on volumes. So there's all kinds of enhancements in 2024. Structural engineers saw those enhancements in structural member creation and modification. There were big improvements to analytical modeling. Of course, Dynamo updates, all kinds of values added for elevation base, option offsets, and shape editing surfaces, preserving primary design option views. Well, let's jump into a few of my favorites. So in 24.1, we were able to do all kinds of zooming inside. So Control plus Zoom, you're zooming inside the project browser. We're able to, well, there was other enhancements to the project browser. We'll talk about some of those, like the the indication when a view is on a sheet. In point 2, we saw the first access to alignment of tags and keynotes. So text, tags, keynotes, they're all able to be easily aligned to the left or to the right, justification, and also distribution. So we were able to equally distribute tags and alignments and keynotes in 24.2. We were seeing some improvements when working with type properties. So you select an element, you go to type properties. We can turn on the browser and play with the views, both shaded, wireframe, etc. The twin motion updates were pretty big. Global illumination, reflection systems, Lumen, of course, the Unreal Engine 5, the ability to import animated assets had enhanced. We were usually just painting things like the vegetation. Now we're able to use the paint tool and scatter things from Sketchfab and Quixel and the user library. And most of the twin motion library assets can be enhanced in this workflow of scatter and spray paint, kind of distribute. Of course, Topo solids, the excitement happened in 2024, moving to Topo solids. I think it's a great enhancement, giving layers of material, just like we see in our walls, roofs, and floors. But now they can act as hosts for site components, parking, railings, floor-based elements. We've been able to add a custom slab edge to the Topo solid to put that kind of curb or perhaps a berm or wall. There's more APIs exposed for Topo solids. So developers can create APIs, access the APIs for creation, creating Topo solids from Topo surfaces, simplifying points, contour settings. All of this is accessible, as well as included delete slab shape vertices function. So more enhancements, increasing more abilities to modify these Topo solids and functionality. In 2024, we saw the coordination improvements with coordination models. So in case you didn't play with this, I would highly recommend it. You can create a coordination model from Revit and AutoCAD and other applications. You can link those coordination models from local drives as well as Autodesk Docs. And there's more features to come in 25 when I get to those. When we're creating design options, that was enhanced in 24.2, where we were able to accept those views, or basically once a view was kind of deleted through accept primary, we're able to contain those views in the project and not delete them with the design option, which is a nice enhancement. So let's get to 2025. Those features are basically brought to you by the community. If the community contributes your Revit ideas by going to autodesk.com/custom-evaluate Revit, you'll see that you can come in here and add to the Revit ideas list. Since 2016, Autodesk has implemented over 400 ideas and 31,000 community votes, all basically bringing improvements to the various versions. So there was faster DWG linking in 2024. Linking and reloading was 20 times faster. In 25, we're seeing the IFC import export is 50% faster, and the mitigation accelerates the install. So 2025 installation is very quick. So thanks to the ideas. So go to Revit Ideas and vote. And who knows, maybe next year your idea will be in the new release. So the theme that we have this year based on these topics, let's jump into them right now. These are my favorites, the mullion profiles, the topo solids. I know I'm going to say topo solid a lot during this presentation, but I also think that the improvements made to the extensible storage is going to be a big thing for everybody. It possibly could be the end of any schema conflict warnings. We'll see. Other enhancements and features that I really like is improvements for the electrical engineers, where single phase and panels consuming power properly. Interoperability, we have GIS and informed design for Revit. This is a new feature, not even a feature, it's a new product. Informed design for Revit, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Forma add-ins. And of course, there's a big item related to Insight, total carbon analysis for architects. So let's continue. Sheet collection, as far as document efficiency, the improvements in sheet collections and room perimeter accuracy, we'll talk about those. Let's start by talking about design productivity. And this is one that I'll demo. So I'll jump into Revit in a moment. But basically, when we're creating walls, we can have them adjacent or even overlapping and automatically join and lock. Let's jump into Revit. Bang. So you should be seeing Revit right now. And I'll jump over to this area just because it's easily to access. I'll use my fancy control copy. And then I'll create a wall of similar nature. And this is where we have to make the action happen. So if I enable auto join and lock, and I draw the wall adjacent to another wall, you'll see that those walls are going to be spacebar will flip. Those walls are automatically going to be joined with the other walls. And as we do this, undo. As we do this, we're going to be able to have those walls automatically. Let's get rid of that one, spacebar. Oh, wow. So it's doing the whole thing. As I create walls that are adjacent to other walls, spacebar, those walls will automatically join and lock. And then when we go ahead and place a door, maybe I'll grab this one, create similar, and I'll place that door in that wall. That opening, as long as it's simple, will cut through all of those walls. And all of those walls are aligned and locked to the original wall, even if I move them. Pretty wild. Anyway, that's one new feature related to creating walls in 2025. Of course, that feature is not available for structural walls, face-based walls, stacked walls, or curtain walls. They also don't work when we're dealing with slanted or tapered walls. The slanted and tapered walls will join, but they won't lock. So as long as we place the openings, I think you'll have some new experiences when dealing with wall joints. And speaking of walls, as we start to manipulate walls, we were able to enable or disable wrapping. There's a new feature in Canvas where I can select a wall and I could toggle whether it's that end, the beginning end, or the end. The first end or second end will be wrapping. So that's the visibility when selected in a plan view. Of course, it's almost there. It would be great if that toggle continued for inserts, but maybe next year. This is a really cool feature. So we're able to create multiple nested loops within a mullion profile. And those loops will end up creating solid or void forms, as you can see in this image. So some enhancements that will really get your curtain systems much more realistic. It's going to affect performance overall. But if you keep them simple, I think it'll work out really well. Here's an interesting feature, the ability to put single element or empty arrays in families. And I'll demo this one as well. So we jump back into Revit, and here's a family that has multiple elements arrayed around the table. So when we go to the type properties, you'll see that we have the ability to say, hey, I want one array in the family or even zero. So this is a big deal. There was nothing I needed to enable within the family or the family type in order to do this. This is just a new feature when the model has been upgraded to 2025. Speaking of new features in 2025, when we take a look at a family type property dialog box, obviously we could show the preview. So there's enhanced features or more features in the preview. We can change our shading, make it consistent, maybe make it shaded, or even show the textures. Pretty cool little updates. Let's jump back to PowerPoint. Topo solids. I mentioned Topo solids. So now you can create a Topo solid from a surface, and Revit will maintain the excavations. So in the past, we would create an excavation by using the pad. So when those Topo surfaces are turned into Topo solids, we're preserving those. So some really cool features happening in the Topo solid world. As I mentioned, excavations. So create a Topo solid in Revit, and I'll be able to create an excavation, add or remove excavations. Let's jump into Revit and take a look at that one as well. Of course, this one, I'm going to go to the site project. So here I am in the site project. This is the sample files that come with 2024 and 2025. And here down at the bottom, I've created a couple of roofs and some floors, even some modified sub-element floors. And the idea is that I go to the Topo solid, and up here in the option bar is excavate. So I can pick any of those elements, and they will excavate the Topo solid. And at any point, you can come in here and also unexcavate. So you can remove an excavation that you've done previously. And as I mentioned, Topo solid is the thing of the major topic in today's presentation. Simplify Topo solid is also there, and some cool subdivisions and shape editing. Let me get back to and I wanted to show you the feature for shaft openings. So here's the Topo solid. I'm going to go and create an opening. This is probably the only opening I like within this opening tab. Well, that's for another topic. I'll come in here. I'll use a sketch. As I should do, I'll do it in plan. I'll create a sketch for my shaft opening. And what I'll do is I'll pick the base constraint, and I'll pick a top constraint. And it says, no, you can't do that. Probably because I'm making it below. There it is. I did. I ruined the whole presentation, didn't I? Pull it this way. There it goes. So there's the shaft opening. And in 2024, that shaft opening basically cut the whole solid. So the whole site. HL for hidden line. So now the shaft opening is acting correctly. And since we're here, might as well illustrate that new feature in 2025 is our ability to host elements on those excavated surfaces. All right, back to the PowerPoint and more discussion of Topo solids. You can also do a Topo solid by face. So that one's a pretty easy one. As long as you have a mass in your project, you're creating a topo solid not in the normal way, but in the by face or model by face. Might as well do this as a demo as well. So let's jump back into Revit. Here I am in my project, and I'm going to enable the show mass. So there's a mass that I created, and that's a compound shape. And instead of doing topo solid from the normal command, I'm in the massing insight and I do topo solid by face, which is pretty cool. And there we go. And I'm going to use the simple example to keep it thin. If I had put a larger topo solid type in there, it might get bent. And it's working pretty well. Oh, that would usually give me an error. But anyway, topo solid by face, pretty cool feature in 2025. When you do those excavations, you're going to get the volume of soil removed. So basically, the individual excavation volume is included and available for you. The total excavation volume shows how much soil has been taken out of the topo solid. You can create schedules for those parameters and use schedule filters to display volumes by topo solid types. So a multi-category schedule is typically what you want. So more accuracy and some flexibility. There's the topic of the shaft opening enhancements. There's the topic of host. Even though the topo solid was excavated, the elements will still be hosted on those surfaces. So that's a pretty big feature. And one that I did not illustrate, it's a project setting. You can basically enable topo solid smooth shading. So rather than show the faceted or fragmented topo solid, it'll be nice and smooth. There is some limitations, some surface patterns or drafting patterns on the topo solid will not display when the smooth shading is enabled. You cannot place a decal on a smooth topo solid, and material displayed will not be overridden by graphic overrides. I don't think it's a game changer. It's still a great tool. And when you're shape editing, using the modify sub-elements on a topo solid, we'll be able to continually display the contours. And there's some cool new features allowing the shape editing to snap, both along surface, absolute, as well as just an XYZ value. Won't be able to snap the splines, but come on, it's a pretty cool feature and allows some more accuracy when dealing with, perhaps a linked survey model or a survey DWG. There's all kinds of new updates for Dynamo. So working better with linked models, improved interaction with geometry, things like locating Revit geometry based on detail level, element get geometry. There's also topo solid nodes and a better package manager. The package manager, where we could search and find and filter to view packages with or without dependencies. So some pretty good features. And for those using Dynamo, they'll love to see these enhancements. The one that I really like is this ability to search for nodes by category, give an ability to kind of list return nodes that belong in the list. Anyway, so project browser enhancements. I mentioned earlier that you can zoom in the project browser. Now we can get all kinds of better filtering. So when you're dealing with filtering, the parent node contains the keywords, and some of the child node contain the keywords. Basically, search more efficiently using more especially in searching for families and views and everything. Some things that I want to talk about that we should be using or should be discussing more frequently was the coordination models, as well as this idea of Revit being able to create shared views. And shared views are going to be displayed in the dark theme or so consistent with the UI. But shared views are pretty cool. We're hosting these shared views on Autodesk Docs, basically sharing the project with users who don't have Revit access. There's some new enhancements to rebar. So the position, the slice, the length, the modify, splices as needed. Alternately, you can also set a maximum length and a minimum length for run-out position. So structural engineers are getting some love in the new 2025 features. Some enhancements for framing and columns, so we can use the split feature. Split with gap. I don't get the split with gap, but I understand the split feature being useful. That's for even when they have steel connections. So here's a new thing for everybody to check out. Revit Personal Accelerator UI. So there was always the Revit Personal Accelerator, but now we have access to it, and we can go over there to the system tray, access the Revit Personal Accelerator, display the PAC, the pack cache, changing the limitations and copying the folder location. So basically, a little bit easier access to, the data being used, and giving us more ability to optimize performance when working with Revit in the cloud. Some improvements to Revit's use of Microsoft's .NET framework. So upgraded to 0.8, or not 0.8, but .NET 8.0. Basically, this is a modernization. It's giving developers better tools to create Revit tools, improve performance across the board, and improve third-party developer experience with integrations and modern development. So hopefully this doesn't mean that our developers need to recreate their whole apps. And here's that big item I mentioned. So when you're dealing with linked models with various plugins, it has been common in the past to once in a while get schema conflicts. So these are a couple of the different dialog box that you might create, right, when you're upgrading a model or perhaps linking another model, opening and reloading links. So the improved extensible storage basically should result in, to minimize schema conflicts and basically making it easier to work together with different teams where, I'm not managing the teams and the versions of the plugins that they're using. So this must be a result of the improvements to, the partnership with Unify. We'll see more of that in the future. When you're dealing with your view templates, Revit has given us the ability to use the filter discipline better. So you'll see some improvements on categories when filtering by these disciplines. But here's an option or a new feature that is going to take a little to get used to. So every time you modify or create anything, this is my little mantra, every time you create or modify anything, check your options. Some of the tools are going to be removed from the option bar and moved to the property palette and the Revit. Things like 3D snapping, work planes, ellipse ratios, arcs, area rules, things like that. You're going to find more features, not in the option bar, but in the properties palette. So that allows for key tips, shortcuts, and improved functionality overall. The electrical engineers, I hope, are happy with this one. So Revit will now support single-phase components within three-phase connections. The complexity there was always required workarounds. So this is, enhancing efficiency and design for electrical phasing. Speaking of more, tools for the electrical engineers, setting a maximum amount of circuits, so warnings will appear when items are added to a circuit. Also, some other panels will consume power like they should. So things like low voltage fire alarms, and that will show up correctly in power schedules. On the sustainability field, Revit and Autodesk has export GBXML version now is 7.03. So basically more comprehensive modeling of building energy systems, right? So we're talking about, expanded descriptions for zone, air, hydronics, heat exchangers, chillers, things like that. Forma. If you're not using Forma, you should. Uses a fantastic, opportunity to scale up the conceptual proposal. So as you start analyzing your site, Forma is there for you to, analyze the surrounding context, to pull in, buildings and site and roadways from, online sources that Autodesk has partnered with. So in 2025, or with the 2025 release, the Forma to Revit transfer has been improved, as well as the Revit to Forma. However, do not exceed 150 mesh triangle when trying to import a Revit model into Forma. It's supposed to really go the other way around. You build your Forma model, a rough conceptual design, analyzing the site, and you export it for Revit for, a couple of key enhancements, and you could bring it back now. There is also a great plugin for Rhino. So Rhino to Forma. Anyway, new features for Autodesk Insight. So this new feature is due out any day now. Basically, new Carbon Insights plugin for Revit. So look for, Insight updates or Insight plugins. And basically, that plugin is going to leverage the EC3 databases. It's going to basically result in, better information for your energy analysis. Speaking of analysis, on the structural side, Revit 2025 can use the local coordinate systems for analytical members and panels, and to align axis orientation directions when dealing with structural analytical models. So you can change this axis and better unify your view of the analytical model. So improved analytical consistency with structural analysis software. So this unifies the model that we create in Revit and the models we link outside, obviously to robot structural analysis or RAM or some of the other tools. Speaking of analysis, when you're dealing with operating schedules for these energy models, we can now do more accurate, even daily building operating schedules under the MEP settings. So that gives us some more flexibility. So in case it's a school or a hospital or whatever it may be, operating schedules change, and now it can be very specific. So the engineers have better functionality and flexibility. Interoperability, improved IFC export mapping, right? So basically there are some templates and some customization to the IFC class and predefined categories. So this customized template settings can be exported for use in other Revit models. STEP was in there too. I deleted that slide, STEP import improvements. But for civil engineers and dealing with civil engineers or coordinating with these engineers, there are 5 new GIS coordinate systems. These are horizontal coordinate systems, like the Amtrak Northeast Corridor or ISN 2016. Bottom line, enhance integration with geodesical reference datasets. This really should be a topic on its own, maybe a presentation for the future. Autodesk Informed Design, a platform-based solution that brings manufacturing information to the beginning of the design process to inform design decisions and improve project certainty, preventing errors. Basically, if we have a library that is, kind of driven or kind of monitored by the manufacturers, it'll be a better process overall. So expanding the access to this content and giving design teams more informed content is the whole idea behind this tool, new in 2025. Revit to robot link enhancements, again, the coordinate systems, the transfer split members. So the Revit model is getting more and more enhanced bidirectional transfer data between the two applications. As I mentioned, in these tools of interoperability, released in 2024 was the coordination model. So coordination model is an NWC and NWF, basically a model created in Navisworks. We can put those models in the cloud, coordinate those models within our projects. So instead of linking a heavy Revit link, we can link a more streamlined coordination model. And when you're dealing with those coordination models that are pulled in from Docs, we can watch and compare the changes. So basically, the changes are graphically and visually colored based on whether they were new or modified or deleted. So some really good tools regarding coordination models, and I think everybody should check them out. Speaking of great new features and efficiency, on the documentation side, sheet collections. So we're able to create multiple flexible groups or packages of sheets, right? So these packages are called sheet collections, and you can have, A101 issued for bid and A101 in another sheet collection. Basically, as we create these sheet collections, we can have duplicate views or similar name views in both collections, essentially having multiple sheets with the same number Each sheet can only exist in one location, either inside a specific sheet collection or directly in the model. And as we get this enhancement, the sheet collection and referencing sheet collection parameters are now available. So we can use those within the project. View categories, these parameters are available in view titles and view references and call-out heads, elevation marks, section marks, title blocks, you name it, and basically drag and drop these things, these views and sheets inside of collections. So some pretty interesting enhancements. What took so long? We can use these new sheet collections in the project browser organization as well, so we can group and categorize views by their collection parameters. Here's a great new feature. We're kind of getting down to the end of it, so I wanted to leave with some really exciting ones. Again, this has been asked for years. Background PDF export. So that basically means that you can export your PDFs, all of your PDFs, and Revit will continue to be live and active, so you can continue working while the PDF export process is running in the background. This one is great, but it's going to take a little getting used to. So room perimeter accuracy. So Autodesk has improved the accuracy of rooms and accounts for inner loops within rooms. Now, additionally, the perimeter values did not include that. So we're talking round rooms, arc segments. The room perimeter and area volumes are more accurate in this new release.